From 1908's The House of Ghosts to The Conjuring, haunted houses have been the subject of horror movies for over 100 years, and one of my favorites. Maybe because I lived in one when I was younger, but also because the idea that you're being tormented in what is supposed to be your safe space is terrifying.
Could have been worse.
I'm James Chaotic, and this is my list of my 10 favorite haunted house movies. Kicking off the list is The Happiness of the Katakuris at number 10. This is a horror comedy musical from 2001 directed by Takashi Miike. And for a brief plot synopsis, a family moves to the country to run a rustic mountain inn when to their horror the customers begin befalling sudden and unlikely fates. This one is super weird, but really unique. But even if you aren't into musicals, neither am I still recommend it because it's so different.
Awesome kite.
There's something going on at that house.
This is why nobody will sit next to us at lunch. You'll see, no ghosts!
Chatter, come back, please! Chatter, I'm serious.
At number 9 is Monster House. No adults believe that 3 kids' assertion that a neighboring residence is a living creature that means to harm them. With Halloween approaching, the trio must find a way to destroy the structure before innocent trick-or-treaters meet their ghastly ends. Now, while this one is more for kids, I think it's a great introductory horror film for younger audience. It has a great story, it's fantastic acting, phenomenal animation. This one is a super fun watch for any age. Number 8 is La Casa Muda. This isn't a great movie by any means, but this one came out when I was in film school, and the Canon 5D Mark II had just been released. This is a DSLR that was a game changer because it was the first DSLR to shoot 1080p video. There was a lot of buzz around this camera. A lot of filmmakers were using it. The director of La Casa Muda also used the Canon 5D Mark II and claimed that it was just shot entirely in one take, which is highly debatable since the camera could only record 15 minutes of footage at a time. Also, it took 4 days to shoot. However, it's still a really well shot movie. The cinematography was fantastic, and the entire film felt so claustrophobic. Now, there was an American remake called The Silent House and stars Elizabeth Olsen. While I don't think it's as good as the original, it's still worth a watch.
God's peace in this house.
At number 7, we have the Amityville Horror. I'm sure you probably thought this was going to be much closer to number 1, but to be honest, for me, it's not as scary or as intense as other films later on my list. And I'll even be as bold to say I prefer the Ryan Reynolds version over the original. And for me, because basically nostalgia can only get you so far, but it is still, I think, one of those haunted house films that if you are a film buff or you're just getting into horror films, it is sort of like required watching just because it sets the tone for so many horror films in general for years to come.
What is that?
Now, if you're still here after that, number 6 on my list is The Deep House. This is a newer haunted house film with a bit of a twist. A young and modern couple who go to France to explore an underwater house and share their findings on social media undergoes a serious change of plans when the couple enters the interior of a strange house located at the bottom of a lake, and their presence awakens a dark spirit that haunts the house. This film takes fear of haunted houses and combines that with the fear of the deep, and you have sort of this overwhelmingly claustrophobic film, especially if you're afraid of water, that is just absolutely terrifying. The Deep House is solid tension all the way through. It's not like a totally unique film, but it is a really cool concept.
There's something horrible happening in my house.
So kicking off the top 5 is The Conjuring. I really think the way James Wan used these sort of longer build-ups to an effective jump scare made me happy watching it. Asian horror was where we started seeing that sort of suspenseful build-up, and Wan really used it effectively in this film, at least for me. And with that in mind, none of the jump scares felt cheap or like they were used for filler, like you see in a lot of not so good horror movies.
Wanna play hide and clap?
And that combined with great acting, fantastic cinematography, excellent camera movements, the story we got easily fits on my number 5 spot. Speaking of Asian horror, A Tale of Two Sisters creeps its way to number 4. After spending time in a mental hospital, a girl is reunited with her sister and returns home only to see truly strange events start to happen. This was directed by Ji-Woon Kim, who also gave us 2010's masterpiece, I Saw the Devil. Kim does a fantastic job at blending family drama with horror, and while I think this particular type of ending has become cliche and unoriginal and overused, hence the word cliche, this is one of the first films where I saw it used and it felt really effective for me.
Where is my daughter?
Are you mad? I am your daughter.
And at number 3 is what I think might be the quintessential haunted house movie of at least the last 30 years, and that is The Others. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but this is a must watch. The Others does a great job at scaring the audience through not only visual scares, but auditory scares as well. And I think for me, this was also the first time that I have seen this type of particular ending. Definitely check this one out if you haven't already. And at number 2 is the original Poltergeist. This one scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. I think the sequence that sticks out in my mind the most is the steak on the counter scene. I mean, when old dude pulled his face off in the mirror, it may look a little cheesy now, but back in the day, it was absolutely terrifying. Then there's the clown doll scene, which pretty much affected me for the rest of my life. And that's why Poltergeist is so high on this list, because it is always stuck with me ever since I was a kid. And finally, at number 1 is Ju-on the Grudge. This 2002 classic from Takashi Shimizu checks everything off on my list of what makes a great haunted house story. I think even the remake with Sarah Michelle Gellar was really well done and is probably one of the best American remakes of Asian horror out there, probably because Takashi Shimizu directed that one as well. Now, I can get into other reasons as to why Ju-on the Grudge is such a great horror film, but I might save that for my list of my favorite Asian horror films of all time. And there you have it. That is my top 10 favorite haunted house movies I'm curious to know what you would consider to be your top 10 haunted house movies. Let me know in the comments. Until next time, my name is James saying, if it was real, the cameraman would be dead too. Good night.